Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to a special episode of Cricket Spectacle. I am Siddharth Gulati, and I have with me the usual suspects, Nikhil Deshpande and Dan Gardner. To all our viewers, I have been bold enough to say that this is a special episode. So don't miss out on this unique videocast. This is going to be insightful. And with that said, let's get started. Often, as far as cricket is concerned, we as fans are very much interested in knowing a lot about the players. However, there are some people who do or have done a lot for the game, being in front of the camera or behind the scenes. Our today's guest features in the same list. He not only specializes in resilience research and applied practice in elite sport, but he also has the experience of working with an international team. So without any further ado, we welcome Sahen Gupta, sports psychology consultant at Cricket Scotland and the founder of Discovery, the Sport and Performance Lab. Sahen, it's good to have you.
Absolutely. It's great to be here and really looking forward to having this chat. And well, let's get going.
Yeah, sure. So today, Dan, we shall start with you. So please, just shoot your questions.
Oh, absolutely. So, how did you fall in love with Scottish cricket?
Well, I've always been in love with cricket. And even while in Scotland, while I was doing my doctorate, I was playing every now and then. I was just playing in the park. Sometimes I got a friend who had pads and kit, so playing in there. The weather in Scotland is not really all year round for cricket. So we have to pick and choose our moments. And then the opportunity came along. I presented a plan to them, and then things sort of snowballed into it. And then that's where it started. And cricket everywhere is it's beautiful. So why not?
Oh, that's fantastic. Just explain to everyone, what is resilience training? So are you basically taking Scottish cricketers out in the field and teaching them how to sledge and survive a sledge?
Not exactly. So resilience is something that every individual has, be it in sport or be it everywhere else. Now, the difference in sport is, cricket specifically, is one of those few areas in life where every single thing that you do at your job is broadcasted to millions of people. And sport is also an arena where everything is pretty much success or failure. Cricket especially, there's no draws, like in football, for example. So on average, any cricketer is more likely across the course of their career to fail more or be defeated more than they are to succeed. A batsman is more likely to get out more than they are to score centuries. Even if you look at some of the stats of the absolute legends, Brian Lara, Don Bradman, Sachin Tendulkar, Virat Kohli, Rohit Sharma, that you wouldn't really find them to be scoring more centuries than you will have getting them out, or even scoring an average of 35-40, which is considered epic in the international cricket. So then we have injuries, then we have selection process, then we have form, that whole process in there. So sport is a place where you constantly get that defeat, you constantly have that failure. Now, resilience is all about the ability to adapt to that failure. So how are you viewing that? How are you understanding it? And then because what people do is react. There's a big difference between reacting and responding. So resilience comes in that space between reaction and response, because we want to have a structured approach to responding to defeats, to adversities. So resilience training is less about other people, but more about the individual and the team as well. This team resilience operates in a slightly different parameter, and how they are collectively or individually responding to it, not only in terms of what's been thrown at them, but how are they shielding themselves, how are they picking themselves up, and how are they going at it again.
That's fantastic. So now that you've taken Scottish cricket under your wing, what's been the response from the team so far?
Well, the team's been really fantastic. I've been working with teams because we've been working currently. Before this, we were working on the under-19 ICC qualification pathway. And there was a lot of challenges throughout, a lot of very changed up training pathways due to COVID, lockdowns, travel rules, so on and so forth. And their school age children, right? They're under 19 cricketers. They've got a lot of that side of things going on as well. But overall, the response has been fantastic because my approach is quite different to other sports psychology consultants, and I'm eventually soon going to be a qualified sports psychologist as well. My approach is different in the sense that I integrate it more within the sport. So when I look at mental skills or mental awareness of sports psychology, it's not sort of, right, we're going to keep that here and we're going to keep sports there. It's not really that. It's very much integrated within it. You know, that old adage, people can hit centuries in the training nets, but not on the cricket field. The same thing sort of applies when we look at our mind and our mental skills as well. So the whole approach was about taking sport with mental skills. And since I know cricket, I've played cricket pretty much all my life, different places, different levels. I am able to integrate that. And due to that fact, it's was received much better because athletes only like people droning on about the importance of calmness or awareness, Zen mode. Because at the end of the day, they're like, okay, what does it look on the cricket pitch? What does it look when I'm, under pressure from a bowler who's bowling fantastic fourth stump outswingers and putting one in? I have no clue. I can't read him. And what's that like? So that's where my approach differs quite a bit. And I think that's partially the reason why we've had such a good response feedback pretty much across the board. Every player has become involved in their own different ways. We've had team-based stuff, leadership development-based stuff, as well as individual player and team development stuff as well. So been quite a varied, but quite a leveled response to all of that.
That's fantastic. Nikhil, I'm sure you've got some questions. How to be a bit more resilient on the cricket field?
Oh, I need all sorts of training actually. But if just talking about the players that you mentioned, the under 19 players, right? So do you see like a stark difference between the youngsters in terms of how they approach the game? Because there are the two elements to it, right? Like one is the fearlessness which they have because they have not actually faced those many problems. So they are in a sense very fearless. But on the flip side, that's kind of like that's not 100% strength at times. It can be a weakness as well. How do you deal with those kind of approaches?
Well, one, we have the gratitude of not being experienced, not thinking over all the times it went wrong. The other side, you're going, damn, I'm not experienced. There's that dynamic always at play with youth sport, any youth sport, but especially in youth cricket, because cricket is really 3 games. Any athlete who plays cricket is a game of 3 games. You have batsmen who do their own thing practically. Then you have bowlers who again have to do their own thing. And then you have fielders who are completely different. So we in sports psychology, we have something called role clarity. So when in a team, you need to have very good role clarity. And in cricket, you need to have 3 separate role clarity based things, because in football, you're a midfielder, that's it. And you do midfield. You don't really go up and down that much. But in cricket, you have 3 different things. Now, when it comes to young athletes, one of the things that we have to keep in mind, especially with emerging cricketing countries, is the amount of cricket they play. So a lot of the training from, let's say now is October now, so in a couple of weeks maybe, and now there's a season gap sort of a thing, a week or so, and all the way up to February, nearly everything will be indoors training. So it's just indoor nets and hits like that and strength and conditioning, and that's about it. Because the weather doesn't really permit cricket. So pitches will not bounce. Pitches will be there. They'll even maintain it, but it's sub-zero conditions. So pitches won't really be pitches anymore. They'll just be flat surfaces with a lot of frost. So you can't really play outdoor cricket as much with deuce balls and everything. You can't really do that. So, and then when the season eventually does come, there are other factors in it. So since emerging countries don't really have that breadth of the amount of people playing cricket from a much younger level, the amount of cricket everyone plays is quite different. So if you take someone, an average 15-year-old, 16-year-old in India, right? They'll be training 2 days a week at that level. If they're playing under 16s, they'll be training 2 days a week, maybe 2.5. Then they'll be doing SNC most of the days, light SNC, and they'll be playing at least 1 2-day match, 1 T20, or maybe 2 ODIs minimum, right? That's about the minimum. Weekends is for ODIs, and then weekdays, if it's vacation time, you have 2-day matches.
Yeah.
But over there, you don't really have that much of playing opportunities because not a lot of people are playing cricket in the first place.
Right.
Yeah. So you go to India, you go to Mumbai, one Maidan will have 5 solid cricket teams, like teams with solid players.
Yeah.
But over here, we'll have regions and we'll have cricket teams in every region. And it's growing. It's brilliant. It's so lovely to see. The interest is growing. Cricket Scotland has a Wickets program, which is the community development and sport through community program,
Yep.
which is really finding positive impact, not only in men's cricket, but also in women's cricket as well. The women's team has been doing fantastically well over the last 2 years almost, and they've been consistently developing as well. So that's a key difference, because we talk about experience, right? Coming back to the point, experience is quite different when we look at it in emerging countries. What are they experiencing? And also the types of pitches that they're playing, the types of environments that they're playing is quite similar. So the experience is quite simple. And cricketers know that, cricketers know that because they see cricket. And all of a sudden, we had this conversation actually with the spinners team. They're like, we've never bowled on a pitch which sort of gives you degrees of turn.
Yeah.
It's either arm balls or pace differences or just drifting it in a different
flight,
way.
yeah.
But you don't really have degrees of turn. Where in the IPL, you'll see Chennai, Eden Gardens, well, the old Eden Gardens pitch. They changed it now because now they weren't coping up with it.
Now they want runs, right? They don't want actual spinning balls. They just want runs in the IPL.
So. Exactly. So you could see degrees of turn in that pitch. I've watched so many matches that he did. If he was sitting in the parallel blocks or even at long one, you could see the ball turning quite visually. That's how much it's fun. So that's where experience and that fearlessness dynamic does work a little differently in emerging countries, I think.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned the different roles as well, right? Because like you mentioned, cricket is batting, fielding, and bowling. Do you consciously probably focus on each aspect of it? Like, how do you differentiate? Because a training or a resilience point of view for a bowler is much different to a batsman, right? A batsman is under probably pressure opening the batting, while a bowler can afford to bowl a few loose balls, but because he'll still have that chance of just getting one good ball and he has a wicket. So the dynamics is completely opposite. So how do you approach that with players?
Well, I'll throw fielding in there as well, because
fielding as well.
Fielders can have multiple catches in a match, or they can be absolutely horrible. And even when you go into international cricket, right, what we often don't see is the cost of bad fielding, because we've gotten so used to quality fielding these days. Because if you look at mid 2000s and compared to fielding now, mid 2000s fielding was bad, wasn't it? It was just bad. People wouldn't dive at all.
Well, just hang on. Just speak for yourself. Like Australia. Are you?
Australia was good. Australia was
probably
the best fielding team at that time. But even if you compare the best Australian team to the fielding technique training right now, it's still they'll be saving 15 more runs in a match and stuff like that.
Just so we're clear for the audience, when we say bad fielding, we're talking about England, right?
Yeah. England, India, probably. I think there was this running joke as well. Right? There was a running joke in between that the fielders are not diving because they are afraid that their clothes are going to get dirty. That's why they don't dive or something, which is very funny. But it was very true in the early 2000s. Probably.
You've got to be able to see your sponsor's logo clearly.
Exactly.
Absolutely. I mean, even the training techniques which came up in fielding, so you have reactor pads and everything nowadays, which just wasn't there. And the whole way of fielding training has really, really evolved with sports science development in cricket. So if you look at everything, all three of them, it's quite different, right? Very simply put, a batsman has a very different challenge every time they walk out, So if you look at a batsman walking out, they have about, on average, 45 seconds for a very short ground to about 1 minute, 20 seconds, 30 seconds all alone. When they cross over the boundary rope and all the way to the 22 yards.
Right.
That poses a very different challenge, because helmets down, and you're actually thinking of something very negative, because you're only there because someone's gone home. right? So you know that the bowler has just taken a wicket or you have just lost a wicket. So it's about turning that into what you need to do. It's a very different ball game, quite literally. And then we have bowlers who need a quite a different pendulum-based approach because bowlers come in and out of spells. I mean, T20 not much because you bowl two at the beginning, you bowl two at the end. If you're fast bowlers, if you're spinners, you just keep bowling four. That's unless you're bowling really bad. But that's about it. But in ODI formats, especially and Test, you're fielding, and let's face it, sometimes fast bowlers are put into fielding positions where the ball doesn't really come at all.
Yeah.
So they're mostly like, yeah, hi, hello, and then yeah, good work, boys. That's all. And then how to psych back into that charging bull mentality about coming back, getting their mark, resetting mentally. This is equally important for when it goes well in the previous spell and when it doesn't go well. Because we often think that okay, we bowled well in one spell, you just continue it through. Not always, because that resetting and refocusing is super important. So there is quite a different training path because like I said, I integrate the mind into what they're actually going to be doing technically, tactically in the cricket field. So quite different. Again, for fielders, depending on where you field, there's quite a slightly different training patterns as well.
Yeah.
There's something called cognitive training in terms of reaction time, speed testing, and so on and so forth. So I do quite a bit of that as well with the sports sciences team over there. So if you're a in-circle fielder, you have a little add-on extra training program compared to if you're out there, where you have quite a different mental skill and quite different cognitive ability in terms of tracking and what we call discrimination ability. So how can you discriminate white sky, white ball, and then track it through when you're taking a long catch versus bat and quick reaction time when you're taking a quick extra cover or something like that. So
yeah, I mean,
So
it was
sorry to
so
interrupt
simple
there.
though.
Yeah.
No, go on, Ed.
Yeah.
Go on.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, do you work with the players in terms of what they're seeing on social media these days? So basically, in the early 90s, 2000, they would have no Facebook, Google. They wouldn't be able to see sort of the comments on Twitter. So is
I think every athlete has it, doesn't it?
Yeah, to sort of toughen the players up when they see a bad meme about their fielding skills. How are you sort of working with the players to sort of combat that resistance? Because we've seen with Glenn Maxwell sort of overnight sort of come out and say, the true fans have sort of supported us in the IPL, as opposed to some of the other comments that they said, because the players are, being in a COVID situation, are reading that more, engaging with that media more, and that obviously would affect performance on the field with all those little key things you're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, that's becoming fast important and super, super crucial in terms of player well-being as well. Not just in terms of performance, but in terms of player well-being, because you've had a great match, everyone's fine, but there's usually one comment or two tweets which pointed out one flaw in that performance, right? And let's face it, no performance is perfect, right? Everyone thinks they know better than any international cricketer when they're on social media. Like, why did they play it outside fourth stump? They wouldn't be able to see the ball, much less play it. But why did you play it outside fourth stump? Even if they scored 85 or something, why did you get out? And it's always a very demanding culture, and it's very important to understand, to have that distinction, that demanding is okay, because every athlete wants to do better, to improve. So you're demanding something from yourself, you're sacrificing. That's good, that's okay. But there needs to be a line between that and taking care as well. Because we often think that, I tell my athletes this as well, we think that the boundary rope is sort of the end. You leave the ground, you leave the pavilion, pack your bags, go home, you leave everything on the pitch. But that's an ideal world. It doesn't really happen like that, because this thing over here, that brain sort of really goes fast and merges that too. So when we look at personal life as well, the more out of cricket stuff, that comes into the cricketing field as well. So there's that dual exchange of the fact, I guess. So social media is blurring boundaries even more because of this phenomena and commenting. So it's more about not associating your own worth, ability into people or comments of people about who, one, probably don't know what they're saying, two, don't really know you on actually a personal level or don't really know you at all, and three, well, they're not actually the umpires of the game, nor are they the opponents that you're actually going to play to, right?
Yep.
Now, all these are things are very easy to say when you're sitting there in a 7-hour room and we're going through social media policy for the team, right? Which is great to say, but how do we actively interact with it? So there are some basic rules that I tell. I work with a lot of young athletes. I do work with a lot of young athletes in tennis and football, rugby. So I often tell them that you have your phone, that's great. But if you want to listen to music and stuff like that, just try to get another device if you can afford it. Because if you can, put all your music in there. If you can't afford it, let's make a deal that we're going to keep the SIM at home, or we're going to just keep it on airplane mode, just so that in the space you have all the things. I mean, players love to listen to music, which is a great mental psych up or a psych down, whatever you need. But in that period, especially to and fro, when the what we call arousal is at its highest, so in terms of the heart is beating, emotions are running high before a match, during a match and after a match as well. So there are some things that tell all young players that get into that habit of just separating that. Yeah, because you want to call your friends and family, that's great. So you can do a old-fashioned call, keep the Wi-Fi and the internet out of it. So that, and so far it's worked quite well for most of them. Some of them do like to check it, and then they'll come and I did check it a little bit. It wasn't so that bad. And the thing is, with under 19 cricketers or with non-senior team cricketers, you don't really have that much of a spotlight on them yet. So it's about how you can facilitate them through that process of bang 5-star performance in a 5 or in an under 19 World Cup, and then everyone's like sort of in it. So players do get a bit of media training, which I sort of supplement when our sessions happen. And so that's how that goes. It's a very complex dynamic, to be really honest.
Oh, that's fantastic. I mean, as long as Joe Root and the England cricket team realise we're speaking the truth about the Ashes, that's okay.
If Joe Root ever gets any kind of negative tweets, be certain that it's Dan. And if the account name is not Dan, it's probably Dan's fake ID. But I can assure you that at least 5 tweets are going to go to Joe Root in the next 6 months. So yeah, Joe Root, if you're listening to this, prepare yourself.
I think Joe Root and most cricketers go from being loved and you're playing well against India. Every Australian is like, yay, or every day, and then come to Ashes, we hate you.
Yeah,
and that's the
flip as well.
Sport,
that's
the nature. Even in football, you can have like Barcelona really happy that Real won, if that's preventing some other team from getting points. It's that sort of a thing. But yeah, I think the England team have a very good sports psych setup in place, support system set up in place as well. So they're going to be okay. I think it's going to be a cracking competition in the Ashes this time. And looking forward to it.
Oh, absolutely, aren't we all? Sid, have you got anything to sort of wrap us up with that?
Yeah. I have a few Yorkers to bowl at him for now.
Go on.
So I'll just start with it. Okay, I'll just start with an easy one. So, Sahen, I spoke about the lab which you are a founder of, Discovery, the Sport and Performance Lab. So, could you tell our viewers the reason behind this initiative and what all do you do there?
Well, we do quite a lot, but the reason is the most important, because sports psychology in India is not really developed. It's got a couple of practitioners at MSc level and stuff like that. And the main reason for that is the education pathway itself is not really set up in India yet. So I have guest lectured a couple of times at Christ University. I'm trying to do a bridge code type of a thing with some of the more established training routes from England, Australia, stuff like that. Just ensure, because unless you have people training people, because there's a lot of people who want to be it and then don't be it because they don't have the training pathway in it. And you can't really have a counseling psychology or a clinical psychology background and then jump into the world of sport. It's completely different. I mean, someone asked me, can I do it? I'm like, have you ever been trained to take a therapy session at 40 degrees heat in the sunshine outside? They're like, I'm like, probably not, probably not. It's too late. So you really need to do that thing, because we have sessions at diverse places, right? And I quite like to keep things moving. Sometimes we'll be at the topmost stand, as long as there's privacy in the stadium, we're fine. We'll be walking around one boundary circle. So I quite actually have to be fit, that I can't be tired and let this sort of go tired, because otherwise I can't help them to the best extent. The idea behind Discovery was to allow a platform where Indian athletes, developing Indian athletes, established Indian athletes across sports can have access to that. Because not just Indian athletes, UAE, UK as well, we have quite a lot of consultants from different parts of the globe. So the idea is to help them have that access to evidence-based scientific stuff, because I do a lot of research, as I just mentioned. So I'm quite updated with that as well, to get them the best support possible, so that it's a knock-on effect. Everything's a domino effect in sports. There's a knock-on effect into another. But that's one area. The other is research and development, to develop more synthesized elements into the Indian cultural setup, into the Indian sporting culture as well. But across the sporting cultures, what are the differences? What are the similarities and stuff like that? And lastly, it was also to give some of the people who really want to, who are really keen, just to have an opportunity to be involved, or at least know what sports psychology is, know what they should be doing. So we have quite a lot of UG interns who finish their bachelor's in psychology, who are interning with us, just understanding, and like we have some very strict rules in place. So like UG interns are not allowed to sit in sessions or even do anything other than informational support. We have MSc interns, we have full-time consultants. So it's more about them learning from the consultants a bit as well, so that they can make an informed choice about how they want to go to do their higher education. And then once they're done, we're there to welcome them back. We're like, come on in now. Now you can take sessions, So it's about that principle, that we want to be effective, because in sport, everything at the end is a stopwatch game or a numbers game, isn't it? We want to be effective. We want to be real, because I always tell my clients, it's not going to happen overnight. You don't build biceps in 2 days, right?
Absolutely.
So you can't build neurons in 2 days either. So it's that process, and to afford that opportunity across these three fields to everyone. So yeah, that's the whole idea behind it.
That's great. That's absolutely brilliant, I would say. So, Sahen, what do you, let's say, what do we mean when we say a cricketer is mentally tough? What are the aspects that actually cover the term mentally tough?
Well, the most underrated aspect is consistency. Consistency, not just in terms of the outcome or what they come out with on the cricket field, the scorecard, but consistency in terms of their approach, and consistency in terms of how they reflect, consistency in terms of how they can come back, understand, learn, have that learning process. Because you talk to any coach, or you really look at a player across a period of time, across their career, the player that they started with is not the player that they end with. They're the technical wise, tactical wise, mental skills wise, physical wise, none of it, right? Because every player goes through a constant learning curve, because international sport is one arena where you have to go through that constant learning curve, right? This year, India's Tour of England was a demonstration of our batsmen doing that learning curve. I haven't seen in my recent memory an Indian lower order batting performance as solid as that. To be very honest, like absolutely solid. Even the top order, the way they did it whole.
KL Rahul and Rohit Sharma, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. The Australian bowling lineup for years and years have been, if you look at Mitchell Johnson, Stark, constantly evolving the way they do the little things differently and perfectly, if I may say so. So it's about that learning growth. So mental toughness is about not only being able to withstand those pressures in moment, but it's about what you do out of it. Yeah. These pressures include injuries. These pressures include selection concerns. These pressures include a lot of it. And mental toughness is linked to the environment the athlete is in as well. So we look at environment and we sort of think our training facilities and that. It's not just that. So we have something in resilience and mental toughness. A big facilitative factor is positive environments. So what is positive environments? It's basically the athlete is allowed to fail. And that creates a cycle of open coaching ability. That creates a cycle of learning ability. And then there's that balance between the athlete needs and what the team needs in a, what we say, adaptive manner, healthy manner.
Yeah.
Whereas it's not one at the cost of the other. So that balance comes in. That's where really facilitates mental toughness over a period of time across any player who's had long-term career. Doesn't have to be a successful career, because we only find out if it's a successful career or not after they retire, right?
Right.
Ajit Agarkar, when he was playing, always underrated, always throughout his career. We look back now, such a good bowler, consistent speed, very injury free, very good economy rates, and the main thing is he didn't have any support around him. Ashish Nehra was there, but he had a lot of injury issues, and then Zahir Khan came in a bit later as well. So he was in that bridge sort of a period. He was practically alone, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Munaf Patel, one of my personal favorite bowlers in terms of consistency and toughness. He had one job to do: bowl uncomfortable lengths, he did it. So it's stuff like that, Andrew Simons as well, a really, really tough player in terms of everything that happened around him, but how he kept churning those runs out, facilitating the team, because Simons is not one of those glamour players. He didn't get a lot of hundreds. He was batting number 5. Before him were probably 3 of the best batsmen at the time: Gilchrist, Hayden, Ponting, right?
Yeah. Damon
4
Martin.
was Haddon.
David
Hussey as well.
Hussey was there for a while, and then
Michael
Simons
Hussey,
was there.
David as well, but
Mike was there. Yeah, Michael Hussey was there. So he wasn't gonna get a lot of time, but he did what the team needed. He gritted it out. And it comes in many forms, but consistency across a career is one of the most important indicators of it.
Absolutely. I think just to stick with this question only, an extension to it. So I remember it was way back in 2009 that Jeremy Snape, the former England cricketer and South Africa's sports psychologist and performance coach then, he said that the next 15 years will be about working on the minds of cricketers. Now, be it Virat Kohli, Glenn Maxwell, Susie Bates, or Australia's Will Pakowski. Yes, the cases have been different, no doubt, but Snape's statement has more or less proven to be true. So my question to you is that how do you see things progressing in the next 10-15 years?
I get asked that question a lot, with different places, and I love answering that question because in a statement, sports psychology now is where strength and conditioning was in the mid-1990s.
Yep.
That's the equitable distribution.
You mean it's actually that far behind right now? I mean,
I think so, because if you look at
that's interesting.
Because in 1995, 6, 7, strength and conditioning was real. Like they were there.
Yeah.
But in terms of the research, they were really ahead. Just like sports psych is now. We really have a lot of excellent quality research backing up what we do, because it is a medical-based science. Most sports psych departments are in health sciences departments or sports sciences departments. So they're very much laboratory-based studies and stuff like that as well. But the permeation, the translation into the applied field with actual teams and stuff like that, that is lagging behind a bit, because usually in the 1990s, strength and conditioning was just about physios and maybe a few strength and conditioning camps, and then physios used to run the thing. You go right now from the IPL onwards, I think. Yeah, IPL onwards, I think 2008, 9, that time onwards, you have full-time strength and conditioning properly in there. Before that, we used to have snippets. Australia had it. Actually, I think Australia had a strength and conditioning coach. Usually now teams have more than one strength and conditioning coaches. Yeah. Developing pathways have it as well. Because we could see the gap. The India team from 2008, 9 onwards, that generation, that golden generation as they call it, they had the strength and conditioning setup done as well. And now you can see the benefits of that setup and that next generation of players all well stacked and really fit, really less injury prone. They only really get injured either serious injuries or impact injuries, like Shami's hand, for example, stuff like that. Previously, India team used to get injured a lot. Any team, because strength and conditioning is a preventative side. Same with sports psych. We have the research base and we're slowly coming into it. The difference is it's much more accelerated than strength and conditioning was due to multiple factors. Through the information spreadability, like this wouldn't have been possible mid 2000s, right? Skype barely existed, and recording was separate issue altogether. YouTube had just come out, so completely different world. And what COVID has done actually is accelerated the process to a great extent, because the idea that there is something quite literally bubbling under the surface, and you can't really push it down for too long, it comes up in some ways. That's how it is. And the thing is, when we look at sports psych, we often are tempted to think that, it's only about performance. It's not really. We have performance, absolutely. We have well-being, athlete well-being as well.
Yeah.
We often work with coaches in the setup itself. Like I said, I work with the team manager and the coach a lot, because they do have a lot of influence and inputs. They do understand their players. But we also have transitions, right? So for some players, you do need to set up a transitional phase as well, because all of a sudden you are going from having everything, really, like literally everything. You walk out, you have the adoration of crowds, people are doing this, people are doing that, people can recognize you, and then you sort of turn off the light switch, isn't it? Automatically when you retire. Well, okay, 1 week after, if you're Tendulkar or stuff like that, then 1 month after, you'll always have the adoration, but then it's quite a different lifestyle switch. Now, some players love it. Some players want it to be that way. They're tired of the whole thing, where again, well-being comes in during play. They're tired of the adoration. They're tired of all of that. Sachin Tendulkar was famously at one time media reclusive, right?
Yes.
Because the media kept bombarding him about that one thing. And then he said, I'm not going to talk to everyone, right? And then he went and produced that innings at the SCG without playing a cover drive. Because every time he went to the media, he's like, Sir, aapka cover drive, what's wrong? I'm like, why are you to say? Every single time, every single time. It's not a light switch. It's happening. It's a technical change he was making because of his different bat, his elbow issue as well. So it's not an overnight thing. And then he produced that innings, and everyone automatically started saying, oh, he can play every shot in the game. Because it's just that sort of a thing, right? And it's about that. So it's about transitional periods as well. It's about injury management. Injuries are physical, yes, but there's also psychological impact on it. If our viewers sort of are doubting me on that point, next time you have a fever, I hope you don't, but next time you have a fever or tummy ache, think about how cranky you become, right? Think about how many times you go, oh, my boss is horrible, this is that, or that is happening. You get annoyed at your partner. Imagine that in sport, right? Where you're facing someone coming at you at 150 clicks and you're going, oh, I'm so annoyed. It doesn't really happen that way. So it's quite a diverse field, but definitely it's growing. That's the last frontier, sort of, in sports sciences, and we are going quite rapidly towards it.
That's nice. That's nice.
Absolutely. I think you mentioned as well, Sahen, that you like coach or train people from other sports as well, right? Like, is there any like glaring differences between cricket and the other sports, and how the approach differs?
Well, some approaches quite differ, but cricket is like an individual sport within a team sport, if you're really looking at it critically. So there's not that difference between individual and team as such. Like in football, it's not an individual sport. It's a very team sport. Striker can be the best in the ball. Ball doesn't come to him, he's not going to score, or she's not going to score, right? But in cricket, an individual player can make a lot of difference. But the team ends up closing it, of course. But if one player starts scoring 150 strike rate, IPL we saw, right? Where Shreyas Iyer, Ruturaj Gaikwad in the first qualifier. Gaikwad turned the match on his head, practically, put them in a position. So it's individual. So it's not a big difference on that front. The main thing in cricket is time, actually. We often forget that other sports are never as long. Even if we take an ultra marathon, it's not as long as a one-day match, right? So, and in cricket is one of those weird dynamics where you're actually sitting or resting almost the amount of time that you are playing, right? So it's about how you manage that, because when you're sitting and not doing anything, this tends to wander. It tends to go in different directions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's about how we can get that balance between the two, and that's time factor is the biggest thing in cricket, because you don't have that amount of time in any sport. A
Yeah.
one-day match is literally what, 8 hours nowadays, 8.5
Yeah.
hours
Yeah.
almost.
Yeah.
Very quick run rate, over rate, the 8.5, 9 hours. Test match, it's days on it. It's 3-5 work days practically, or 9 to 5 practically in most places. Then you have rain. Most other sports don't stop when it rains. Tennis is also nowadays not stopping when it's raining. You have the routes. Cricket, I don't think will ever have that, because the nature of the sport is so that the wind can come in and manipulate accordingly. So, although there have been talks of that after the recent rain showdowns in England. So,
yeah,
who knows?
we have one in Melbourne over here, the Marvel Stadium. So it has a roof as well. So that's pretty cool, because it's probably the best stadium I've been though, like anywhere. Even the MCG, even though MCG has like more historic value, that one stadium which has the roof, it's a very well built and well thought out stadium. But yeah, like you said, it probably
It's a
is.
stadium, isn't it? Yeah.
Sorry.
It's a planned stadium.
Oh yeah, it's a
planned for
very
that.
planned stadium, because it's one of those rare stadiums where you can get a seat anywhere in the stadium, even at the topmost level, and you will be still have a very good view of it. So they have built it on top of one another. So yeah, it's a very good stadium actually. But like you mentioned, the rain aspect of it is probably something which will never go out of cricket. And you touched upon a very good thing about the timing as well, because I remember when I played, I used to absolutely hate it when we had to field first. Because the thing was, I used to put my 100% in the first innings, and then it's sunny outside, afternoon time, you have lunch, and then you sit down, and then you just wait for your chance to go and bat. And there are moments or days when you just don't want to go to bat, and like it's like I'm done for the day.
It's like, I want a nap.
Yeah, exactly. It's done, right? Like, and that's a very, and I know this for a fact, because like you mentioned earlier, that walk of like 40 odd seconds to 1 minute, I had that. I remember I went into bat one day when two of the previous batsmen were bowled, like the stumps were flying out, right? And I went out and I was like, I don't want to go to bat. That guy is bowling fast. I'm not going to survive. I didn't survive. I went out and got out on the first ball, but I almost know for a fact that I was dismissed before I reached the the wicket, because I don't remember any of it. That's how I know that I was defeated, because I just went. It was just like I went there, I stood, the ball came, I missed it, clean bowled, back to the pavilion. But how do you, like, let's say, because I remember this very evidently, even like 20 years from earlier, right? How do you, as a sports psychologist, like help people to get over such not so good memories as such? Like what's your solution to that? Because help me, I want to forget that probably.
Well, the thing is, we can try to forget it, but eventually it does crop up in that area of life or other areas of life as well, because what we call it repression or suppression. So it's sort of like you're screwing the lid on the pressure cooker really tight and hoping the heat would turn up, but the heat has just turned down, it's still on. So eventually it will blow, and it blows in a very ugly way, not in a pleasant way at all. The idea is that there are two ways to sort of go about this. One, you have task-focused coping, and the other one is emotional-focused coping. Usually integrate them together as well. Now, we look at why it happened first, and then the consequence emotionally when it happened, and not do it immediately after they come back. Usually, my thing is nod or be there, preferably not in front of cameras or in the public boundary rope segment. They usually go straight back up, right? So over there, just facilitate them, just have not a session, but like quick chat. Because in sport, you don't really have like, psychology or counseling, you'll think session is like sit down, notepad. It's not really
down
like
on the
that.
couch, lie down, tell me about your life.
Can't really do that a lot of the times. Can't really do that, because you're in a dressing room where, if you've ever been in a dressing room, it's not the most formal place. You have rap music on one corner. This is happening. This is like people are throwing water on each other, and it's fine. That's the whole part of the thing. But it's about just putting a shower and just stay with it for a while, because it's important to stay with it for a while.
Yeah.
And after that, after the event has occurred, we usually process it in a proper manner, and manner where you can learn task focused, and you can also process the emotions associated with it. So
yeah, I mean, that the thing which you mentioned about like just letting it simmer a bit, like, simmer down, like not immediately attacking it, that makes a lot of sense as well. And something you mentioned earlier about consistency, I reckon that probably something which I heard, I think Kohli said about visualization before batting as well. In a practice session, he visualizes as if that's the actual match, and then he actually practices it. So in a sense, what he's doing is effectively putting himself in a situation where he has already been earlier. Is that something which you guys also focus a lot?
Yes, I mean, visualization, if you look at core mental skills, absolutely core mental skills is one of them. The thing is, most people think that we're going to close our eyes, we're going to think about it, and we're done, right? Visualization is not quite simple as that. It requires a process to develop a technique of visualization across situational responses and situational times. So the way visualization works, I think, is more interesting, because then we'll understand what it is. So our brains essentially neurologically, neuropsychologically have neurons firing towards each other. They communicate, they create mental representations. When we are in an actual situation, a certain group of neurons, such as neuron group A, fires, right? When we are watching a tennis match or a cricket match, and we actually know how to hit a straight drive or how to hit a cover drive, neuron group B fires, but a little bit of A fires as well, because your experience of training and playing cricket is sort of being replicated when you're watching and sort of recording what happens when that person plays that shot. Now, when we combine these two and we watch ourselves play in a video format, B fires less, A fires more.
Right.
And when we visualize it, we are looking to fire A more without sort of being in that actual taking a bat and playing, because you can't play for the entire day, you're going to be exhausted. An actual visualization session is almost like virtual reality. And there is some good research stuff on how to use virtual reality to facilitate visualization processes as well. Because the idea is that it's immersive. So you're really in that process where you go through a set processes with a set timing process. Because people top one error that people think visualization, close your eyes, 50 over match in 2 minutes, done. Like, I'm going to play this, I'm going to play this 100th century, we're done. But that's not how it works. It won't be firing your neurons in a proper way. So that process is immersive. And when that immersion occurs, that's when that impact comes across in the sport field. So it is a very, very key process. And a lot of coaches ask their young athletes to start visualizing, right? 12-year-olds visualizing. It's pointless. Like, you can't really, because the brain isn't quite developed yet for a 12-year-old to start visualizing in that complex manner, right? 12-year-olds, if you look at brain development, 12-year-olds don't really have that much abstract reasoning skills. It's more important for them to learn and just enjoy their sport, because then that gives them an enjoyment feeling of it, so they'll do it more. Their practice is more important, because their brain just isn't developed to visualize it in that complex level, not yet anyways. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that kind of adds to the fact, like, why everyone can't do it. That's also another aspect of it, because some of them, like you said, either they have the tools and the techniques to do it, and some are either not having those or just doing it the wrong way as well, because that's what separates, like, if Kohli can do it, I can do it. That's not actually true, is it?
I mean, Kohli can do it, yes, you can do it as well, but Virat Kohli can do it with his technique. Correct. He can visualize his own technique. He can hit a cover drive and he can visualize the same cover drive.
Right.
You can hit a cover drive quite differently, but you're visualizing Kohli's cover drive. So your mind-body connection is not present. Which means
so it's like more like a personalized technique. So there would be...
You have to be realistic. You have to be realistic. The main thing people forget about visualization is realistic, because visualization also incorporates body senses. So advanced visualization, which you really need to get to eventually, involves body senses as well. So the weight of your foot, the head positioning, the way you go through the ball, all of them are very important. The feeling on the hands when you make contact, when that happens, when you go through that process. Most people can't hit Kohli's stance, let alone the drive, actual drive.
athletes.
Yeah.
Most people will be standing at that position. You can bowl it at that position. They'll still struggle to get that sweet contact time because that has come to hours and hours of practice, right?
Yeah.
But visualization, if you visualize your own technique, as bad as it may be, and if you're improving a technique and then integrate the processes, then it's got a much better success rate. So everyone can do it. Most people just do it for what they see on a screen, but they can't really actually hit that shot. They won't be able to move that fast. So no chance.
Yeah. And is it the same with consistency as well? Do you reckon that people can actually build consistency, or does that also need?
Oh, I have seen it. Like I have seen so many young athletes, like pre-teen athletes or teenage athletes. When the hormonal thing comes in, it's a lot of emotions to take into place. So, and more importantly, they're growing, right?
Yeah.
So biomechanics, I'm sure you both know about it. Biomechanics is how the body responds and body works. So if like your body grows 3 inches towards, not 3 inches, 1 inch towards this or half an inch towards one side, in a cricket bowling, that's a huge difference because your body is out of balance. So it doesn't feel right. So your bowling action doesn't feel right. And the body doesn't grow uniformly. The body grows in bits and pieces, right?
Yeah.
So that's why teenage players usually have the most trouble with consistency in terms of action, in terms of playing and so on. And that annoys them because they have high emotions as well. So it annoys them to no end. Because they're like, I bowled the one ball yesterday perfectly. Today is everything different. What they won't realize is they may have grown 3 millimeters on the right leg. So they're a little off balance coming into it and they're dragging something. A good coach can recognize that and really work with them to do that as well. So consistency is about physical, mental coming together. So that part is very important, especially for young athletes.
Yeah. And
or even older athletes, in fact, when they're getting older. So when they're coming back from an injury or actually getting old, we all get old. So it's not a big secret.
Is discipline a major part of it as well?
Every sport, you have to have discipline.
Okay, can you develop that? Because like from a personal experience, I know that discipline is something which I really lack. So is that something which, as athletes as well, I'm pretty sure many athletes as well do lack that, right? So are there techniques to actually develop that aspect of their game?
Yeah, when we look at discipline, it's more like cut up the pizza before eating it. So you don't really go for it in an overnight switch, but you really build up discipline and consistency of discipline in small areas of life, right? So some players are really bad at timekeeping, right? They probably don't own a watch. So that's the first step. That's the first step. Have it on your wrist. So you give a reminder to yourself all the time. Like, no, I have my phone. Okay. How much charge is there on your phone right now? 3%. And I'm like, okay, buy a watch. Right? So it's stuff like that. We have to really look at the dynamic because human behavior sometimes comes down to the more basic bits. It then acts as a building block to the next level. So discipline is definitely from that level. It also ties into what I was talking about, positive environments. Positive environments create a love for something. When you create a love for something, you have that energy to do it more. And then it's just about focusing it in a consistent manner. And that creates discipline over a period of time.
Yeah. And I think before I just get to my final 2 questions, I would like to summarize the chat between Nikhil and Sahen here, that if the questions were good, the answers were even better. I think this is one of the best 15-20 minutes, the last 15-20 minutes I've ever, I would say, witnessed in, I would say my career as a journalist when I've seen some interviews or, just been a part of it. So Sahen, one of the most important aspects I feel, is that is a part of sports psychology. And I'm sure, you would also agree with it, is cognitive behavioral technique. It's basically a way to change your thoughts and change a person's thought patterns, particularly the ones that have a negative impact on behavior. So my question to you is that have you had any real life experience relating to this?
I'm trained in cognitive behavioral therapy, actually, so I do it a lot. With myself, for my own personal development, but also with the athletes I work with. So CBT is correct. It's behavioral and cognitive put together. Now, what is important to know is CBT is one of many different approaches to it. So you have CBT, then I do something called EFT, which is emotion focused therapy. And it is two different basic, it's not like jam and jelly, similar, but quite different in the outcome and the way we go about it as well. Now, CBT is very important in sport in general because it allows the athlete to track their progress as they go along. So the athlete can see changes, they can see differences, but every form of session work or in sports psychology starts with building an awareness, right?
Right.
Because we rarely really sort of bend people against their will. It never really happens. So will and their own indication that I want to change this can only occur when you facilitate an awareness in them so that they understand what actually needs to be changed or what actually needs to be developed upon, you know? So otherwise you just go down the same cycle in CBT where you go once again and again and again and again. It just keeps happening, right? So CBT starts with awareness of phenomena, what's happening. Then we go on to understanding the beliefs, the behaviors as a result of it. And then we look at how they sort of mix into like a very explosive cocktail and in a very not good way, and how it spills over as it is. So that's the dynamic between CBT work and sport. I'm actually working on a book right now for sports psychology practitioners on CBT based techniques in sport with my supervisor and my PhD and a couple of colleagues as well. So that'll be out soon, hopefully. It's for sports psychology practitioners, but an eventual goal of mine is to make a book for athletes itself so that they can do some of these things and learn some of these things on their own as well, so that they can. And hopefully I'll start with cricket, but maybe it'll be for all sports.
Yeah, all the best to you for that. And I think there's this one more question that I have in mind. And I think with the classes that I've had at IIM Rohtak, relating to sports psychology, there's one more, I would say, an aspect that interested me, and that was the need for recognition. See, if we see any sport, be it a team sport or an individual sport like tennis, there's always, to an extent or at some level, a player might just feel that need for recognition. So I have two questions here. Number one, how positive or negative it is, and secondly, how can a sports psychologist play a role in the players' lives with respect to having need for recognition so that it does not turn negative?
Well, need for recognition is essentially something for everyone, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like you go, why do we put our names on our assignments, and at a college? Because you need to be recognized for your work. Why do we send an email saying that report prepared by this and this person? It's the same thing, because societal structures work in a way that what you've done is linked to how you are rewarded. So
Yes.
recognition is key too, because otherwise no one will know what you've done. Why does no one publish a book without their name on it? It's the same thing, right? Pseudonyms are fast becoming gone these days anyways. So the idea in sport is that need for recognition is central because without recognition, you don't really get a lot of opportunities. If you're the best player in some corner of the world, or in some corner of India as well, India is a massive country. Like the more I travel, the more I realize India is a massive, massive country. So if you're in some corner of it, let's take Mahendra Singh Dhoni, right? Let's take Mahendra Singh Dhoni. He came up through the BCCI program, right? With the Associate States program.
Yes.
Without that Associate States program, it is highly unlikely he would have ever been recognized as someone who could potentially contribute. Maybe he would have played straight cricket. That's about it. Yeah.
Yep.
That selector wouldn't have been present to see him. So recognition is actually very key to sporting opportunity.
Yep.
So sporting opportunity then equates to, okay, go and bat, show us what you can do. But before you can go and bat, you need to be in the team, you need to be on the team bus, you need to be actually in the team sheet. So recognition is key to sporting opportunity in every sport. Okay. In some sports, it works a little differently because circuits are quite different. Like in motorsport, it's quite a closed club. So even when you have a lot of talent, it doesn't really equate because financial thing is quite massive. Sustaining it is quite expensive. Golf is another one as well. But recognition, without it, you won't really go. Tennis is a seeding system, right? So if you don't actually win enough matches, or you don't register yourself in the local seeding position, you're not allowed to play higher ranking tournaments, even though you can beat everyone in there. You're not allowed to play it because that's how it works.
Yeah.
So recognition in and of itself isn't a bad thing at all, because without it, you're not getting into the main thing. Yeah. The difference is when the need for recognition becomes overpowering. And it very rarely happens, if I'm being really honest. But if that is the only thing driving your behaviors on the court, on the pitch, or wherever, so that rarely happens, because athletes know that it is one part of the puzzle. But if it does happen, it does lead to certain difficulties in terms of development of the athlete themselves, sustaining their passion towards the sport, because everything becomes external out there in the world and what's happening. It rarely happens, because when they're on the pitch, when they're on the thing, because we see these athletes for a period of 10 years, if we're lucky, on our TV screens, on our social media nowadays.
Yep.
They're actually 20 years into it before they are on the TV screen.
Yeah.
No one knew of Devdutt Padikkal till he started playing the IPL last year, right?
Yeah.
But I was in Bangalore. I've seen Devdutt Padikkal play in the Karnataka juniors as well. He's in Jain College, I think. Jain University now. So I've seen him play for some of the junior matches when I've just walked. I'm like, oh, cricket, let's go watch, sort of a thing. But that's something in his life from 12 years of age, maybe even below that for some people, right?
Yeah.
So that's a reality for them. The sport came before all of them. They were not getting multi-crore sponsorship deals when they were 12 years old, 13 years old, right?
Yeah.
They were getting a samosa if they're lucky.
Yeah.
Coach is buying everyone a samosa for winning. So cricket itself, the sport itself, is much more on top, and that comes after that. You 95, 96% of the time. So
yeah, I mean, if you don't actually do the right things, you'll probably not get to that stage as well, right? Like you said, the development actually stops, and then you lose passion for the sport, and eventually you're not reaching the highest level. So you'll probably not be seen by as many people. So it's like a catch-22 situation. If you want the recognition, you shouldn't be hoping for recognition. Keep developing as well.
Keep developing. I mean, I remember Zahir Khan in his early career did not really have that ferocious reverse swinging ability.
Yes.
But my God, did he develop it?
Yeah.
My God, like you give the ball to Zahir Khan at 35 over and after, everyone's standing 2 feet back. Like literally, they will just go back. And he didn't have a lot of pace, did he? He wasn't the natural quick ball. It was more the swinger of the ball. Yeah, 130s was top line. 134.5 was like effort balls for him. Usually it was changing 10 kilometers of pace here and there.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing. So the development works really, really well. And Prithvi Shaw, again, such an immense player, right? And some of his weaknesses have been exposed in international cricket, right? But he's gone back. He started working on it, and he's already having some of the fruits of their hard work coming into the IPL. Rohit Sharma, I can't even imagine how much hard work he did to control his instinct above off stump and outside. And this tour, it was almost like someone had a earpiece in his ear, like off stump, don't touch.
Do it. Yeah.
He never touched it. He did not. He didn't even play anything above off stump. He was like, nope. And it takes so much self-control to do that, because you have to imagine that he's probably been playing those shots for 20 years now almost, right? He's 30s, 20 years plus. To change that takes an immense amount of training, discipline, and will enjoy not being, that sort of a thing. So you can look at it 2 ways. One is I'm scared of being out, which rarely happens, but it's more on the other side where it's, if I don't get out, I'm going to enjoy scoring runs. And that's the only part where I'm really weak. Because if you look at Rohit Sharma's game, he doesn't lack concentration for big innings. I remember I was in Eden Gardens and it was Mumbai versus Calcutta, I think. And he scored 102 of 60 something, and I was sitting at square leg boundary. The ball kept coming here. I'm like, what is going on today? He was on some other level mood that day. But he doesn't lack concentration. He's not weak on the offside. He's not weak in the hook shot, pull shot. That
I think the only thing which he probably lacks is the fact that he can do everything so easily that at times he wants to do it. It's just the pitch or the condition or he's not settled in as much. I mean, he can play that shot like 15 balls after this, but that kind of thing. Yeah, but that's
then again,
that's
that
the
instinct
reverse.
is so difficult.
Yeah, that's exactly because I know I can do it. Let me do it. So yeah, but yeah, it's a very fine line, and that's what probably separates the elite from the not so elite players as well. So,
but then we have the other end of coming back to the first question. I think carefree versus experience. Virender Sehwag never changed a day in his life. Not a single one. He was just like, it's just like one of my favorite examples to show how being free can have such a big impact, and not a lot of very few people can actually have that mindset where it's like, I'm going to do this every single time. I don't care.
I think same was very well the case with Brendan McCullum, one of the best New Zealand players we have seen for sure.
Yeah, but I think that actually comes with the talent as well, right? Like, because you have to have that amount of talent, and then that kind of belief that I can pull this off, and then the rest of the pieces follow
as well. I mean,
training. Yeah,
I remember some matches for India, Sehwag was playing with glasses. Those frame glasses, and he was hitting, I think it was Sean Tate, it's 140 clicks, 6 stump, square cut for 4 without moving his feet, because he never moved his feet.
He didn't need to.
And imagine the amount of how before you have to see the ball. My dad used to say, Sehwag sees a football where others see a cricket ball. It's that thing. It's just like that good. So it's that balance again coming into the play.
Yeah, I mean, which is pretty rare as well. I think we've touched upon a lot of important and very, very interesting aspects which people don't usually discuss as well. Before we leave you, Sahen, is there something which you would like to tell the younger generation who are just coming up in terms of, like, from a sports psychologist point of view, what would you suggest to them? Like, these are like 1 or 2 things that they should do and could do, which will improve their development as such.
Absolutely. So I'll keep it short and sweet. The first thing is, don't be afraid to enjoy your sport, even when you suck, even when it's a horrible day at the office as it is. Don't hesitate to enjoy it. And before 15, 16, don't try to make it professional. Do your things, do your nutrition, do your exercise, do your stretching. Don't be injured, but don't try to get it too serious before 14, 15 years of age, because till that time, it's just about learning. It's just about executing. Pressure yourself to develop, of course, but don't think of that development in terms of runs. You scored 20 and you got out fine, but you were working on that back foot square cut and you nailed it 2 times. That's more important to focus on, not the actual runs itself. The runs will come, but the whole round development is the batsman. If you're a bowler, how consistent is your action? How are you looking at it? And be aware of what your body and your mind is telling you. Don't be afraid to look for help. Don't be afraid to go see a sports psych, go see a mental trainer. It's not that scary. It's quite simple at times. It's quite fun at most times, because I tend to try to make it in a way that athletes have a smile on their face before and after. Well, if not before, definitely after when they leave. Because otherwise, that whole thing that your sport can give you, you're just closing yourself off to it. So just have fun with it, enjoy it, develop yourself not on the outcomes of your runs or your scorecard, but remember the scorecard doesn't tell the whole story. So, and enjoy, listen to your body and mind, and go see sports psych, work with them together, talk to people, as many people as you can, learn from many people as you can, and well, everyone will potentially help you achieve your goals, targets, and dreams.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Sahen just said, if you're watching this and if you know anyone who's playing a sport, and it doesn't even need to be a youngster. You could be in your 20s, 30s, just playing any sport. If you want to improve, in terms of just your game, or in a psych way, you have to need to be in the groove, cool down, whatever it might be. It's a really good advice which he has just given, because follow enjoy the sport, follow what the best principles are, and talk to people. If and not just sport as well, I'm just in general telling people, especially during the COVID times, it's like you talk to people, share your experiences. People are out there to help you. It's just a matter of talking to the right people. And if you want, we will get Sahen back once again, and this time we'll ask him your questions. So if you have any questions you want to ask, and send us through, and we will definitely try to get them answered as well. And once again, on behalf of Siddharth and me and Dan as well, and thanks for joining us today. I think this was probably at least my personal favorite episode so far, which we have done. So thank you for your time. And I know we have got you probably early morning. So hopefully you have a good next 12-14 hours. And if you don't, then Siddharth is the one who contacted you. Just remember, I have nothing to do with it. So
his fault, isn't it?
Yeah, it's his fault.
It's been really amazing. Absolute pleasure to be here. Talk psych, talk cricket in the morning. Best way to start. It's sunny as well, so that's even better. So great. Happy Navratri to both of you as well, and to all the viewers who may be watching it during Navratri as well. So perfect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have a good day. Stay safe, everyone, and have a good one.
On behalf of all three of us, thanks for watching. Do subscribe, share, and the usual blah blah blah. As always, thanks Sahen for joining us once again, and you have a lovely day ahead. And everyone, take care.
Perfect.
Goodbye.
All right. Bye bye.
Thank you.